The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back in the zone talking baseball, hot stove league baseball. I've got the man to do it. He's Jeff Kallman. And how you jonesing for ball these days?
Well, it seems that the off season is determined to keep me in the baseball loop no matter what. Between the hot stove season and what I shall call politely Astrogate.
Oh, whoa, is that not interesting? Especially for us, we have the Mets as odds-on favorites in our lives. And the new manager of the Mets, presumably, is Carlos Beltran, who is supposed to be a key figure.
He's been hired, but it's quite, the questions include whether he was part of the Astros electro-espionage.
Absolutely. And
the questions also reach out to other ex-Astros, such as Alex Cora in Boston.
Whoa, yes.
Because he was the bench coach in 2017, and Beltran was their designated hitter in that season. And they're going to be questioned. And there are others being questioned probably even as I speak, including but not limited to Brandon Todman, their former assistant GM, who got purged over that disgrace taunting some female reporters in the post-ALCS win clubhouse over Roberto Osuna. One of those reporters was wearing a domestic violence awareness bracelet, and Topman, to put it politely, stuck his foot all the way down his throat on that one, and it took the Astros a week to get rid of him, unfortunately.
Why shouldn't the response? I can't imagine the response could have been anything other than instantaneous. If you want to keep half your fan base.
Unfortunately, it wasn't instantaneous. The Astros first tried to smear the Sports Illustrated reporter who disclosed it, and then waited a few days to get rid of Todman when the heat got hot. But regarding Astrogate, Todman is still been questioned by Major League Baseball over punting, but now, since Astrogate has broken out, they may be wondering, asking him what he knew and when he knew about any of the Astros' reputed camera to television set sign stealing scheme. And another, the general manager Jeff Lunell was revealed as having an email to the Astros advance scouts in 2017, asking them that they're using video cameras in the stands for a possible return. So
this is high tech stuff, and high tech stuff is specifically mentioned as a no-no, whereas stealing signs has always been kind of, you're crafty. You're Leo DeRocher in 1951.
Let us clarify once and for all the distinctions. And stealing on the field, from the bases, from the coaching lines, that's just gamesmanship. Sign stealing using electronics or any other mechanical devices has been against the rules from almost baseball time immemorial. And I have a quote I'd like to give you about that. I'm quoting now. There's another form of sign stealing which is reprehensible and should be so regarded. That is where mechanical devices worked from outside sources, such as the use of field glasses, mirrors, and so on, are used. Signal tipping on the fields is not against the rules, while the use of outside devices is against all the laws of baseball and the playing rules. That quote, ladies and gentlemen, was written in a newspaper column in 1926 by Hall of Famer Ty Cobb.
Whoa. I thought it was going to come from some self-righteous commissioner or Branch Rickey, but the most unlikely of all. So, in other words, by that definition, the telescope instance in the 51 season.
51. Oh, there! I got more for you. Some of them are to laugh, kind of. The 1899 Phillies had somebody behind a billboard behind the outfield using binoculars and buzzing the third base coach with stolen signs. They got caught by the Reds. In 1940, the Tigers were stealing signs, and guess how they did it? Remember a pitcher named Tommy Bridges?
I remember Marshall Bridges, but I remember the name Tommy Bridges.
Pitcher in the 1940s, and he was showing infielder Pinky Higgins the telescopic sight on his new hunting rifle, and they got an idea, and they used that sight to steal signs from the center field or left field seats in Old Briggs Stadium in 1940.
Whoa!
Yep.
Ironically, Pinky Higgins, who was responsible for not signing Jackie Robinson, one of those.
Stay on subject, please.
Oh, I will.
The 40 Tigers did it that way. I had never heard of anybody using a rifle scope before, and I have to admit to you, when I read about it, I pondered the look if they'd forgotten to take the scope off the rifle and just pointed the gun down from the stands.
The Manchurian Candidate.
The Manchurian Massacre. People might have been jumping out of their skins. In 1960, two brave pitchers, Bob Buell and Joey Jay, were caught with binoculars in the bleachers in Wrigley Field, dressed as ordinary bleacher creatures, with binoculars watching the game, but it turned out they were stealing signs. A couple of Cub fans caught on watching Buell and Jay, not only training their binoculars, but sending signals to the dugout by way of manipulating their white scorecards the way Connie Mack used to change his outfielders' positions with the old Philadelphia A's from the dugout. And the Cub fans told the Cub bullpen what was going on, and that put an end to the Braves' little operation.
So let's clarify. And sign stealing like that, and including the 51, is against the rules. So it's more serious. When I read the book, Green Cathedrals, about the 51 season, as an old Giant fan, I was really taken aback. By the time I read it,
you should be reading a different book about that. It's called The Echoing Green, The Untold Story of Bobby Thompson, Ralph Franklin, and the Shot Heard Around the World by Joshua
That's
Prager.
the one. I got the title wrong. That a Wall Street Journal author wrote it.
He wrote about it in the Wall Street Journal first, and then the book was published.
Yes, that was the book that really set me back as far as being a Giant fan. By the time I read it the second time, I had rationalized it into everybody steals signs. But your definition, your strict definition, really helps me put it into perspective. My Giants cheated.
Doing it just on the field, a guy on second base, maybe even a guy on third, depending on the catcher's position,
right,
or an out, or even from the coaching lines. I mean, it may not be ethical. Nobody barks at it because everybody tries it, and some guys get good at that. But that's on the field. Specifically, you cannot do it from off the field with mechanical devices, visual aids, or high tech stuff like the Astros are thought to have done.
Right.
And
I feel after all these years of rationalizing it, it's been 15 years or so since that book's been out.
Yeah, 2001.
Yeah, I feel for the Dodger fans and for the late Ralph Branca, who not only had to suffer that, but as a result of that book being written, people did some research, and the good old Italian boy, Dago, as Sal Magley would refer to him. Dago, you should have thrown a curveball. And turns out that Dago's mother was in fact a Jewish woman. And
that's a fascinating story by itself.
He became the second winningest Jewish pitcher in history, and he had never really, never knew it until he found out about it in that article.
That's a whole other story, a whole other time, and it's a fascinating story. I agree with you there. When the Twitter book came out, Thomas Boswell wrote about it, and he confirmed something that I had first seen discussed in Peter Golenbach's early 80s book, Bums, The Oral History of the Brooklyn Dodgers. Boswell talked about Cookie Lavagetto, who was by then a coach, and Lavagetto and the Dodgers thought that DeRocher was up to something. So Lavagetto thought he'd try to catch DeRocher's spy by bringing a pair of binoculars into the dugout. And Boswell said this: umpires took the binoculars away immediately. Why, it would be unfair for the victims to use binoculars to expose the telescopic cheaters.
Wow.
But apparently the Dodgers smelled a rat. Just like in 2017, Danny Farquhar, who was then a pitcher with the White Sox, he's now a pitching coach in their minor league system. Farquhar smelled a rat during a 2017 game against the Astros. He was on the mound with Evan Gattis at the plate. Now, the Astros sign-stealing scheme involved not just the center field camera tied to a television set up in the clubhouse near the steps to the dugout, but the ones, whoever they were, who would decipher the signs live on screen would bang on a trash can with a bat, a large plastic trash can on a bat. Farquhar heard a boom before delivering one pitch. He heard a boom, boom before delivering another. There's video of it. It was widely distributed on Twitter, and you can hear it right before he delivers those pitches. After another boom or a boom boom, I forget which, Farquhar called his catcher to the mound and switched the signs up. He figured out the Astros were at least stealing his changeup signs.
Whoa. And that's, what year was this?
2017.
Whoa.
Now, when Commissioner Rob Manfred first announced that he was going to investigate the Astros, he was concentrating at first strictly on 2017, based on the revelation that started the whole thing rolling from former Astro Mike Fiers. He blew the whistle on and the covers off to Ken Rosenthal and Evan Dillich of The Athletic. But this week, Manfred said he's going to be looking also into 2018 and 2019. And speaking of 2019, it turned out early on, Astrogate was unfolding, it turned out the Washington Nationals were wise to the Astros being at least adept at sign stealing. They may or may not have known that they were doing it electronically, but the Nationals had a counter strategy. They sent their pitchers in the World Series to work with 5 different sets of signs each to foil the Astros sign stealers. And they won all 4 in Minute Maid Park. That's where the Astros are known to have set up the espionage. Nobody thinks they've tried it on the road yet, we think. We don't know for sure, but it would be kind of tough for them to try setting up a system like that in a road ballpark. Now sign stealers using binoculars, telescopes, wall stack, spyglasses, what have you, they can do it in any ballpark they want. But doing it through cameras relaying to television sets, that'd be a trickier setup in a road ballpark. The road ballpark people would be onto them in a heartbeat, you would think.
Yes.
So yes. It seems almost like every day or every other day, it starts to get worse instead of better for the Astros. And what I understand, and I'm sure you probably don't either, and probably a lot of people don't understand, is why the Astros went to espionage in the first place. I mean, this is a great team. They have a run of 3 American League Wests, 3 straight, 2 pennants, and 1 World Series title. Why does a team that great, with that forward-thinking an organization, need techno cheating in the first place? Because you've seen them play, I'm sure. I have. They're sharper than chef's knives at the plate and in the field.
Absolutely.
They will exploit the slightest opposition mistake with mind over matter. You tip your pitches, they'll saute you. Slip out of position, they'll broil you. Hang a breaking ball, they'll slice, dice, and puree you and win a pennant, just like Jose Altuve did when he hit Aroldis Chapman's hanging slider off the back wall of the ballpark. The Astros needed high-tech cheating about as badly as Superman needs a gym membership. You would think.
You would have thought the same thing about Watergate. That is exactly what he needs to enhance.
Nixon was going to win in a landslide anyway. What the hell was his campaign thinking?
That's exactly what comes to mind with this.
And there's something else.
Is it human nature? Is it a greed thing in human nature, or you got to get over what's going on?
We know that boys will be boys. No matter what generation we're talking about, boys will be boys. But now let's go back to the Nixon comparison. Nixon, like I said, Nixon was bound to win in a landslide that year. What was his campaign thinking? Who knows? We can ask the same thing now about owner Jim Crane. Now, I don't know that Crane knew what was going on below him. Any more than I doubt that Nixon got the shock of his life when he was vacationing in Key Biscayne at the time of the Watergate break, and picked up the Miami Herald the morning after and saw it in the paper. He was absolutely flabbergasted. It's what he didn't do that got him in trouble. When this happened,
you didn't cop to it. You didn't cop to it right away.
He didn't know it was going to happen. But what he should have done when he got back to Washington, the first thing out of his mouth, with this thing blowing up as it was already starting to do, is he should have said, I want names, I want places, I want details, and I want heads on plates. If he'd done that, he'd have been the hero of the hour. Astro owner Jim Crane should be thinking the same way. He wouldn't answer a reporter's question the other day. He said, let's keep this. You want to talk about baseball? But this is baseball, unfortunately. And Crane would be the hero of the hour if he says, once he gets his ducks in a row, if he tells his organization, I want names, I want places, I want details, and I want heads on plates. Mm-hmm. Because you put yourself in Crane's position. You have a huge investment owning this baseball team. This team has brought you such glory as few teams do. They've won 3 straight American League Wests. They've won 2 pennants. They've won a World Series. You've got a gold mine with this team. And this kind of shenanigan has just compromised your team. Maybe irrevocably, maybe not, but it has compromised your team. It's put a stain on them, and it's put a big question mark on that run of success your team has just had. If I own the team, I want names, I want places, and I want heads on plates.
Well, maybe are you with me?
I'm still here. I'm not all there, okay. But I'm here.
Well, you are all there, and I'm here too. So let me ask you if this is not a coincidence, but Nolan Ryan of esteemed strikeout.
He left after his son got demoted. That happened. Wow. I think that happened 5 days before Mike Fire's revelation hit the front pages running. I don't know for dead last certain that this had anything to do with it, any more than I know for certain that it definitely had something to do with the Brandon Taubman business. All I know is what Ryan said, and he said only one thing, basically, quote, I won't be back with the ball club, and we'll leave it at that. So we really don't know yet what Ryan was thinking.
And we'll probably never know, was he in on it?
Nolan Ryan impressed me as the kind of guy who would either be involved in or sanction this sort of thing. And one thing to know for sure, in Texas, you don't mess with the Express. Nolan Ryan is almost as iconic in Texas as Yogi Berra was in New York. And if Nolan Ryan walked out of the Astros and it was for reasons other than the fact that his son got demoted so that Crane could move his son in, it's probably going to come out sooner than later. And whatever the reason was, it's not going to look good for the Astros. It may look even worse.
Ironically,
what we can say about it now because we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, but my first instinct was he's got to know something. That's all.
I don't think Nolan Ryan was in position to know something. His son may have, but we don't know for sure. Until we do, anything about the Ryans is mere speculation. Okay.
Well, that's what we're here for, to just ask questions.
And this whole thing is not going to end very easily. Manfred said he'd like to have it wrapped up by the time spring training is open. That's not unrealistic, but when he says he's broadening the scope, not only to look into the Astros of 2018 and 2019, but depending on what various Astro personnel tell him, he's probably going to have to broaden the probe to other teams. Remember, the Red Sox got busted trying something like that with an Apple Watch in 2017. The Yankees concurrently got busted by Manfred over an illegal extra telephone in the dugout for who knows what. And I'm suspecting this, and Manfred has said in the recent past that he's gotten all kinds of complaints about all kinds of things related to stuff like this. So I'm with reasonable confidence that it's not going to stop with the Astros. The Astros are getting the big bad headlines now, and I know a lot of their fans feel like the Astros are being singled out for whatever reason, but it's just because one ex-Astro blew the whistle on the Astros. Of course they're going to get the big attention, but it's not going to stop with them, and really it shouldn't.
Well, I'm sure they're, like you say, they're not the only team doing it.
They're not the only ones. They're just the ones who just got caught red Octobered.
Exactly. It's a big difference between how many people. It's like with PEDs. I mean, I'm sure there are a bevy of other folks that we've never heard associated with PEDs. They just haven't gotten caught. And it could be that this electronic sign stealing has become part of the culture in baseball, and Manfred is just being introduced to it himself. And
this is not the electronic side of it may be new to him, but the off-field devices are not. Even before Astrogate, back in 2010, a Phillies bullpen coach was caught using binoculars out of their bullpen, and the Rockies television broadcast caught him with those glasses trained on the Rockies catcher. And for several years, the Blue Jays were suspected of stealing signs from off the field by way of the so-called man in white. And
tell me what that was. Tell me what the man in white was.
Somebody dressed in clothing with either binoculars or some other type of glasses behind their field. And teams wondered if he wasn't helping the Blue Jays steal signs. And around about the same time, Cardinal catcher Yadier Molina caught onto somebody in Petco Park in a television camera field wearing a Padre polo shirt with binoculars.
Oh, okay. So,
binocular cheaters, high power glasses cheaters have sex among us. Yeah. We're not talking about stealing signs on the field among players or coaches, about people doing it off the field. That's the distinction. Right. When you get down to it, really, The Astros should not be singled out if the evidence turns up that other teams had espionage operations. Manfred should widen the probe and the punishment where appropriate for the who doing it. Leave spy versus spy, the old-fashioned on-the-field shit and Mad Magazine with one. But there's something else I think we should think. Did you a passage I was written in 1987.
Jeff, are you moving around with your cell phone?
No, I was leaning back.
Okay. Because you're breaking up a little bit on my end. I don't know what's coming in.
How am I now? How am I now?
Much
All
better.
right. This is the passage from 1987. Acts of cheating are not the result of impulse-born frustration or anger, as violence is, but are rather acts of cruel, deliberate, premeditated kind. Unlike acts of impulse or violence intended at the moment to vent frustration or abuse another, acts of cheating are intended to alter the very conditions of play in favor of one person. They are secret, covert acts that try to seek to undermine the basic foundation of any contest declaring the winner, that all participants play under identical rules and conditions. Acts of cheating destroy that necessary foundation and thus drive the essence of the contest. They destroy faith in the game's integrity and fairness. If participants spectators cannot assume integrity and fairness and proceed from there, the contest cannot in its essence exist. Cheating is central to the whole purpose of the judgment of and cannot be simply contained. If the game flourish and engage public confidence, cheating will be clearly condemned with an eye to expunging it. End quote. That was written by it was president of the National League denying the appeal of Kallman and Ralph, the Phillies pitcher called Sandpaper. And what he said about one pitcher with Sandpaper applies to the older espionage artists.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he wasn't naive enough to believe that the sheet appeal would put cheating in grave. Unfortunately,
Jeff, could you get back into the position you were in when it was clear?
I'm there.
If you're not. Okay.
I'm there.
All right. Try to stay there.
Now, Jamal wasn't naive enough to think that cheating would go into its grave just because he made that pronouncement denying Kevin Gross. And there who say, "Oh, big deal. It's a nothing burger." Well, I wouldn't call this a nothing burger. We're talking about high-tech stuff here. We're not just talking about smart runners on second or smart coaches on the coaching line.
Yeah, or guys who could get tendencies and what have you. Some guys give pitches. That's all part of the game, always has been. Sure. But I was reminded...
Doing that or catching that on the field, that's always there, and that's just gamesmanship. Doing it with devices off the field is something else entirely.
Well, I'm reminded of my Giants as a kid, who were just simply out-and-out cheaters, and I do feel sorry for the memory of Ralph Branca and the bad feelings of that he took with him to his grave. He was pissed.
But although he handled it all for all those years with such grace, you can only admire him for it.
Right. He made a lot of money through it too. He sold insurance.
Yeah, he did a lot of things.
Yeah.
Insurance.
But
he went on concentration and won several straight games.
And he did what the greatest job, and I would have loved to have it. I'm a kid. The Mets are invented, and he and Howard Cosell did a pre- and post-game show, and Howard would go, "This is Howard Cosell with the wrap-up edition of Mets, blah, 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 blah. I am here with big number 13, Ralph Branca." And they criticized Casey, and rightfully so. I mean, he was charming, and he made the Mets, the iconic public relations thing in history, all of that. But those guys, Jackie Robinson was another one who'd come on, didn't like losing. And they didn't like the fact that there were no black managers, and Casey Stengel was falling asleep on the bench. And Robinson had this, the flame of competitiveness was still burning. And
I remember Stengel having one great home to Robinson that season. Jackie Robinson was a great player, but everybody knows he's now chock full of nuts. That was at a time when Robinson was vice president of chock full of nuts. So you had to give that one to Stengel, but you also had to give him this. Stengel could count on one hand how many players he had who could actually execute. It was like managing the 1930s Dodgers or the 1940s Braves all over again. When he had players who could execute, he won. When he didn't, he lost. It was that simple.
Well, you can't quantify just how bad they were by reading the box score. They did things over the course of a season.
I know. I saw them.
Yeah. Good memories, let me tell you. Hey, speaking of good memories.
I said before, it was like having the Marx Brothers in the infield, the Three Stooges in the outfield, Abbott pitching the NFL, the Harlem Globetrotters on the bench, and the Eastern Cop in the bullpen.
And Jerry Lewis as your third base coach.
I would have said Charlie Chaplin plus Eaton at first base.
Okay. Well, I would have said Jerry Lewis for another reference, but it wasn't quite that bad. But until you've seen Hot Rod Keneal and Elio Chacon looking up, looking at each other, looking back up, and then the ball drops between them, that sort of thing, you ain't never seen a circus with that high a tent in your life.
Right now we're seeing a circus with Astrogate. And it's even where the animals have the keys.
Yeah, that's for sure. If you could look into the future of this thing, what do you think is going to happen? Or do you think it's far-reaching, or do you think it's just a team or two?
I don't know how far-reaching it actually will be. I'm reasonably sure that found no questions asked culpable, the Astros are liable to face some very heavy sanctions. Remember a few years ago that the Braves were hit where it hurt when their recently former general manager was banned from baseball after their international scout monkey run with bonus rules. And it cost the Braves big time, including losing 15 international prospects and a pile of money. When the Cardinals scouting director, Chris Correa, was caught hacking into the Astros computer database, Correa was banned from baseball for life. He also went to prison for it because computer crime is still against the law, no matter what profession you're in. And the Cardinals were forced to fork over $2 million and a couple of choice draft picks to Astros over that one. That's the beyond those things. So the Astros could face some very heavy sanctions. And so I would guess will be any other team who caught a similar espionage operation.
Okay. Hey, we're coming to an end. Thank you, Jeff. This is very enlightening today for me as an ex-New York Giant fan. I knew it. I just buried the memory. I like to think that, hey, you know what's coming. You still got to hit the ball, that type of thing. But if you know it's a fastball,
what's coming gives you a huge advantage. But if you'd like to end on a positive, note, as far as that goes, we can do so because those cheaters didn't always win.
Pardon me?
Those cheaters didn't win. Remember, Phillips a little binocular and telescoping.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Finished third nationally that behind the purpose of the Dodgers. The 1940 Tigers, with their rifle scope cheating, they went to the World Series and lost. The Steel Giants lost the World Series. The 1960 Braves, I finished in second place. The White Sox had a sign-stealing operation similar to the Braves that year. They set behind the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs don't. The 2010 Phillies won their division, but they lost the World Series. They lost rather in the League Championship Series. So yeah, Chiefs don't win. And if the Astros were doing it this year, what good did it do them?
Right.
So whole thought about the cheaters never win. In the end, they don't. And the result more in a World Series time.
All right, my friend. Thank you for ending it on a high note. Thank you for your company each week. And thank you for getting us through this non-baseball season.
There's plenty more to talk about. We'll talk about it next week.
All right. Be well, my friend. Thank you, everybody, for listening. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. The man himself was Jeffrey Kallman. Be well. Thank you again.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.